There are 3 different elements that we can use to make your queer story stand out, and reasons why they are mainly used in specifically queer stories. They are 3 different types of evidence that we will be using in our investigation as you write this story. My name is Bridget, and in case you're new here, I make videos around queer writing, and in this series, we are taking on the analogy of a mystery case, of a case file in detective story. So in this video, we are going to be looking at the different kinds of evidence that we can gather about our queer story and how we can use those types of evidence in fleshing out our stories and making them stand out in the sphere of literature, queer media in general. So let's get into it. In your investigation, evidence is presented, but it's not always useful right off the bat. We are going to be looking at several different kinds of evidence. We are going to be looking at circumstantial evidence, testimonial evidence, and physical evidence. Let's look first into type number 1, circumstantial evidence. For this, we are going to be having the example of a blank notebook, because circumstantial evidence is all from a specific person's point of view. It is not necessarily objective. It is extremely subjective evidence. So yes, having a notebook makes sense in my brain. Circumstantial evidence is definitely disputable. Does not stand up in a court of law. This is the point in your story where your main character is not convinced of something. The circumstantial evidence is the point in your story, we're gonna say, where they are, if we're looking at Save the Cat, which I'm gonna take the example of, it's the debate. It's where they're not sure what they wanna do and someone is trying to convince them to do this. They have a lot of questions in front of them and they're not sure which way to go. There's a lot of paths. We don't know what we wanna do yet. The nature of circumstantial evidence is one where your character is in a situation that in most cases they don't want to be in. They did not intentionally do something, or there's nothing backing their actions. An example of this that we're going to work with is the first act of the 90s comedy, But I'm a Cheerleader. Now, this example is kind of fun because in this case, the circumstantial evidence brought up is to prove that the main character, Megan, is a lesbian. So the circumstantial evidence that is brought to her door is all these things like you have pictures of women in your locker instead of guys, you don't like kissing your boyfriend. There's all these things that during an intervention her parents and her friends bring up. And they're all from their subjective points of view. And at the time, Megan is kind of in this state of denial. It's really at a point, it's at a crossroads. She's not ready to accept her new reality yet. And the way they go about it doesn't exactly help. Circumstantial evidence is really, it can take the form of someone pushing the main character in a direction that they don't want to go. And so the idea of pushing someone when they're not ready doesn't really work in a psychological way. Just humans don't want to do things that they don't want to do. So in the case of But I'm a Cheerleader, Megan does eventually accept that she is a lesbian, but it is not due to this circumstantial evidence. It is through her own investigation of her identity that she comes to this realization. The circumstantial evidence isn't actually that helpful. So let's be real. Circumstantial evidence doesn't really pan out. It's really used in a way to, in queer stories, it's often used to show the society that our characters are in. It is a way to illustrate the way society sees our main character and what they're fighting against. It is a very good way to paint a societal picture. When we look at Megan's lesson through the film? Overall, her lesson is to gain self-acceptance. It is to embrace who she is without shame that is projected on her by society. And so when we have this circumstantial evidence from her parents and her friends, it is not helping her lesson. This circumstantial evidence is pulling her away from the lesson the story is trying to teach her. And so it doesn't actually help. It is important to know what your circumstantial evidence is trying to do. Often it is negative because it's very useful to have something to fight against in your story. It's useful for your characters to have an enemy, even if it's overall society or their family in this case. And having that illustrated through circumstantial evidence is very useful. In this scene, we have, again, the reinforcement of societal expectations for Megan. This causes her to move further away from her lesson, and she starts to run the other way, and this creates tension in our story. In the first act, there needs to be an establishment of tension, and circumstantial evidence, very helpful for this, because in a lot of queer stories, society is the main antagonist. We have a lot of obstacles to do with society still, so having that illustrated, again, I feel like I've said that so many times, it's very helpful. Circumstantial evidence is very helpful for bringing the visuals, bringing the feeling of being pulled back into this heteronormative society and being told you need to repress something. We literally have Megan say, "I'm not going," when it comes to true directions. At the time, seems like a good thing, but it's paired with a lot of denial of her own experience, and we see throughout the film that going to true directions, which yeah, it's a very comical way to look at conversion therapy, but the overall action of her going to true directions leads to her actually learning her lesson. And so the pullback results in them pushing even more, but ultimately ends up being good for her, which is more than we can say for real cases of similar events. In this video, we are going to be looking at some questions. In other cases, we've done like clues and obstacles. In this one, we're just gonna do 2 questions for each element that we are looking at. So they're gonna be little prompts that you can think about to do with your story, and they will help you look into these specific types of evidence. What evidence in their everyday lives will they need to get past in order to grow and accept the lesson they need to learn? So getting past like societal expectations, what their family thinks, all that fun stuff. Question 2 is, who is presenting the evidence to them, and what is the reaction they are encouraged / conditioned to have to this evidence? It all comes down to society. Woohoo! Now, we are going to move on. Testimonial evidence. Now, we've got a little cassette tape. This is where we have your main character usually meeting someone, possibly a mentor character, or someone who has experience with the lesson they are trying to learn. And they are giving them advice, they're giving them their own lived experience. And this really brings new light into your characters and brings new light into the investigation as we learn about what is possible in this case. Like, it opens up doors of who this main character could be in the future. Examples of this are moments like when Nick in Heartstopper sees Tara and Darcy dancing at Harry's party. Similarly, in Heartstopper, we're visiting Leeds University, Nick sees a rugby player wave to his boyfriend, or like seeing two queer people out and proud in university really inspires him to want to go to this specific university. These events help your character see themselves as more than just their situation. It helps them see what is possible for them in the future and not stay so stuck in this mindset of this is all I can have, and breaks them out of their doom and gloom kind of mentality. It breaks them out of their status quo, so to speak. We can argue that Nick probably would have gotten there eventually, but the overall view or overall image of Tara and Darcy having this moment together and seeing queer joy in front of him is so powerful. And I don't see the story itself going as well as it did without that moment, because it really like flips a switch in your character's mind. It goes, oh, I can do that. Like, that is possible. It's possible for me. This also touches on the topic of queer isolation. I think that this is a really interesting topic to touch on in general, because it is so important. I feel like we know as queer people that we kind of gravitate to other queer people. There's like this energetic vibe that we all have where it's like, it's not even a thought, it's just like, it's just an energy. And sometimes it doesn't like dawn on us until like we talk about it. The isolation that comes with not having queer people around or seeing other queer people in media is very potent and does impact us a lot psychologically. I think that when we have stories that feature like one queer character, it's quite unrealistic, and I think we know that by now. Having other queer characters help your main character come to terms with their identity and realize what's going on, or simply help them like feel more comfortable. It is such a comfort to have other queer people in our lives. I know that I've experienced that a lot in my personal life. So having characters in your main character's life that are also queer is very important and can really help them move forward towards their lesson, move forward in a way that is organic and seems like something they actually want, as opposed to something they are doing out of like spite or simply because they want. Like, it's not necessarily what they want on a personal level, it's what they want in order to fight back against society, which I think is really an important discernment, differentiator. We're gonna use that word. With this, we need to take into consideration who is making this testimonial. Testimonial evidence is still very subjective. These types of evidence are quite subjective. I think that knowing who is speaking to your character is very important, and knowing their intentions behind their testimony is very important in the way of, are they trying to pull your main character back or help them move towards their lesson? There are different types of testimonials, because sometimes even when it's other queer characters, we are people. We have different intentions. We have different life stories, and sometimes we can have good intentions but give bad testimonials. It can still be like your main character wants to move in one way and their friend is trying to help them but doesn't have the life experience that they need at the time, so they give advice that won't work for their situation. It is quite tricky to figure out. Knowing what main character needs and knowing the intention behind the other character's testimonial is very important, so that you know who is pulling them back and who is propelling them forward when it comes to the lesson of your story. Positive testimonials can be passive, with the example of Tara and Darcy's dance at Harry's party, whereas usually negative testimonials or misleading testimonials are usually very active. They are ones where this character is going after your main character. They can also be the antagonist, where it's like, I am going to give you such bad information that this is going to derail everything. And there's also, as we just talked about, the gray area in the middle, where there's good intentions but bad advice. So the intention behind it is key, and the execution is key in the testimonial area. I would encourage you to have different kinds of testimonials in your story, because it really creates this push and pull for your main character. It creates this idea of some people are telling them to do this thing, some people are telling them to do another. They might also have someone really firmly telling them to do something that they know isn't right, but they're saying it with such conviction that it's like, I don't know, maybe they are right. And so having this tension, again, in your story is very interesting and creates a lot of dynamics between your main character and their supporting cast. Let's look at the questions for the testimonials. Question 1. Is there a way your main character has never felt understood before? And is there a way the testimonial moment can help them see their own potential? With the example of Tara and Darcy at the party, or the rugby players at Leeds with Nick. It is a very powerful way for your character to feel seen in a new environment. And number 2, who is presenting the testimonial, and what is their intention behind the presentation of their situation and or opinion? I think I explained this pretty well in what I was talking about before, so we're just gonna move on. We are moving on to evidence type number 3, which is the physical evidence. For this, we have a magnifying glass, which, yes, I did buy special for this video. Now, physical evidence is the culmination of the investigation. Physical evidence really comes down to what your main character has learned through their journey. And I know it has the title of physical evidence, but in this sense, it's more so personal evidence. Your main character has learned what they need to learn, and they know now what is right for them. They have made progress in their lesson, and they are piecing together the evidence of what they actually want. The example I'm going to use for this one, we are going to go back to But I'm a Cheerleader. And this comes, I believe, at the end of Act 2 in the movie, and is when Megan makes the decision to not deny that she had intimate moments with a fellow woman at the camp, and decides to leave behind her life with her parents, because her parents disown her after she doesn't deny it. And this is a huge step in physical evidence for Megan. It really brings together her lesson of self-acceptance, and she makes a decision that she definitely wouldn't have made at the beginning. It really shows her new view of society. She has been exposed to different ways of thinking and is now taking steps into this new world that the camp has allowed her to see. She has found her own way, and she doesn't want to give that up. She is not willing to go back to denying herself the freedom that she has found. Physical evidence is often helped by another testimonial. This comes in with Megan in the case of both the 2 older gay men at their house and the other camper that escaped or was kicked out of the camp, played by Dante Bosco. And this is a big moment because she gets the reassurance that her physical evidence, her lesson, has been completed and that she is now in this new mindset. And it really comes to full formation when she confesses her feelings for, I'm trying to remember her name, Clea Duvall's character, and is so comfortable with herself that she's not ashamed to confess her love at this ceremony. And she is so sure of herself in this moment that she knows she wants to bring Clea Duvall's character, I can't remember her name, with her into this new life. Societally, it is hard for us to see physical evidence in queer media because we don't really have a blueprint for it in our everyday lives. The visual of self-acceptance is very allo, cis, het, white, male, all those things. And so there's not so much a blueprint of confidence when it applies to queer people. It is so much of breaking out of this norm, and the idea of trying to find something new can be quite daunting, but is something that is very interesting to look into in any kind of story. This is actually, I've been working on a short story, and this is something that I've been looking into in an allegorical way. I highly encourage you guys to do that. It is very interesting to look into, and I think it's really worth it because it has truly, it's such an interesting mindset shift to try and find ways to write about it in this sense, to find societal ways to live our best lives, to like accept ourselves in all of our queerness. Now, let's look at the questions that we can ask about physical evidence. Number 1, how does your main character realize their transformation is done? Now, we have this in the case of Megan with the 3 gay men at the house. We have it with her doing her cheer and yeah, just riding off into the sunset. I think that's a pretty clear sign that her transformation is done. She's ready to just take off into a new life. And like cutting off connection with her family. Like, that is a pretty significant way to say a character is done with living in this societal standard. And question number 2, what supporting characters, possibly testimonial characters, help them acknowledge their growth and move forward towards their journey's end? We've got Dante Bosco, we've got the 2 gay married men. So there you go. Now, at the end of each video, I like to give a little summary of the points that we have done. So let's look at everything we have covered. Number 1, circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is used to show the journey your character is going to go on and the crossroads that they are currently stuck. What are they fighting against? And what kind of societal expectations are they dealing with? Number 2, testimonials. Who is talking to them, telling them what to do, or what kind of images do they see? Is there a moment that gives them hope, or someone that is telling them which direction they should go? And number 3, physical evidence. What tells your character that their growth is done, and how do they come to this resolution? Those are all the different types of evidence that I could think of. If you guys have any other ideas of what kind of evidence you can bring into your case file, let me know down in the comments. And go off and be the prism for another rainbow, and I will catch you guys next week with another video.